Welcome to the Black Announce Table. From the 718, right off the Deegan, the man with the silkiest do-rag, Manny. From Virginia by way of Europe, he gives his all every week. Cody Bray. Live and direct from Strong Island, the certified good you, Sky High East. You're listening to the Black Announce Table.
I hope I the blast. All right, man. You guys know the vibes. We are here. We got a special guest with us. A very special guest. Just got the internet on fire, low key, with his latest interview. Podcaster, host, journalist, personality. Chris Van Vliet is in the building with us today. Man, hold on.
Yeah.
Round of applause for Chris Van Vliet, man.
Dude, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for having me. Can we play the sound effect again? Do I get the sound effect one more time?
Give it to him.
Oh, twice. Oh, amazing. Thank you, guys. It's so good to see you. Congrats on everything, by the way. Before we dive into any of this other stuff, congrats on everything that you guys have built, and you're crushing it. So an honor to be here with you guys.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you, too. Before we start, can you explain what those two trophies behind you are?
Oh, the silver play button, the YouTube play button. You know, So we've got the main channel, the Chris Van Vliet channel, where the full interviews are, and then we got the clips channel, CVV clips. So if you don't want to watch the entire interview, I get it. You can watch 2 to 5 minute clips on there, and yeah, this is what YouTube gives you.
Nice.
I would like to present you with our own trophy right here. This is a Brammy, which is it's our yearly award show. You feel me? So we gave ourselves awards last year for just the phenomenal job that we've done in the industry. So, I hold this up there with NBA championship, World Series. This is my Grammy right here.
Congratulations. So when you present that to yourself, do you just congratulate yourself and also thank yourself at the same time?
Yeah, it's one of those things. You got to give yourself a nice firm handshake, pat on the back.
Who was it? Snoop Dogg at his Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony when he was getting the star, and he's like, "I'd like to thank myself." Yeah. And the whole speech is great, because it's I'd like to thank myself for believing in myself. And it's hell yeah. More people need to think like that.
Damn right. You got to. You did it. That's how you got those two plaques.
Well, I couldn't do this alone, because I could only subscribe to each channel once, and I needed a whole bunch of other people to subscribe. But I guess for me, it's just the idea of I thought, if I can make content that I'm genuinely interested in making, then my hope is that other people who also like that content might find it and click like or click subscribe, which you guys know. You know all about that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Except I had to make 3 emails to sub to the YouTube, but it's okay. The numbers. We did our thing, man.
Well, please take those 3 emails and those 3 YouTube accounts, and please subscribe to my channels with those.
There you go.
Yeah. I want to start with this tweet from Mr. Vince Russo. I don't know if you know the tweet, but I'm gonna bring it up here just so we all can see. This tweet right here, where he says, at Chris Van Vliet, if every wrestling journalist conducting themselves like Chris does, we'd be looking at an entirely different business, one that would get respect it deserves. Top shelf class act, from Mr. Vince Russo.
Well, look, I'm not sure that Vince actually tweeted that, because he didn't say the word bro in there once. So I don't know. I feel it doesn't feel like a Vince Russo tweet to me, but that's very kind. And when I did see that, super unexpected for him to say that. But I've had Vince on the show a few times, and look, people can say what they want about Vince Russo, but he believes very strongly in his opinions, whether they're one way or the other about wrestling. And I really respect that about him. So really kind of him to say those words, even though he didn't put bro in there.
You didn't get the bro stamp?
No bro stamp.
I wanted to say, first off, do you consider yourself a wrestling journalist? And if you do, how do you feel about, wrestling journalism right now?
I don't think I'm a journalist at all.
Really?
Like, I'm not the one breaking news stories. I'm not telling you when someone's contract is coming to an end, or I'm not reporting on something that happened backstage at all. I've always just been fascinated by having great conversations with people who are at the top of their game, whether that's wrestling or that's athletes or that's an actor or director or comedian. That's always been what's driven me since I started my broadcasting career. And yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of times in my career where I've been an entertainment reporter and I'm basically saying, like, this is a story that's going on right now and I'm reporting on that. But when it comes to wrestling, I don't think I'm a wrestling journalist, but I think that there's oftentimes news stories that come out of the conversations that we have. In the same way that, like, I think there's a lot of podcasts out there that a lot of news stories can emanate from and come from. And I don't think that you would consider some of those other podcast hosts or YouTubers journalists.
Mm. You know what that reminds me of? Kind of like Shannon Sharp when he said, he was like, I'm not, what did he say? He's like, I'm not an interviewer or something like that. Like, he was like, I invite people for a conversation and it's just a conversation that we have. Whereas, like,
yeah, and I'm not trying to make a comparison here at all, but like Joe Rogan has like these long form conversations and a lot of news often comes out of those. But I don't think anyone looks at Joe Rogan and goes, oh yeah, that guy's a journalist. They go, he has a podcast. He's a UFC commentator. He's a comedian, but I don't think that he's a journalist. So I don't know. It's an interesting time right now. Like I came up in the time when, like, you went to school. I went to school for communication studies, and then an internship that I begged, borrow, and stole my way into, lied my way into getting an internship, turned into me getting, that internship that turned into a job. Like, I was very much of the time when, like, if you weren't on TV or the radio, there was really no platform to be able to do this. That has shifted so much with the advent of social media over the last 10 years or so. But when I started my broadcasting career in 2005, the goal was to be on the TV or on the radio. And that was it. Because if you weren't on radio or TV, there was really nowhere to be hosting your show. So it's changed a lot. And I'm very, very aware of that.
How is that that pivot from, like you said, you had to go to school if you wanted to be a media personality in the first place, to now literally anybody can be a news source or an interviewer, like Shannon Sharp did with these conversations that he's having now? He's one of the biggest platforms. So how do you adjust to a shift like that?
And look, Shannon Sharp is crushing it, right? Like, and he's doing such an amazing job. For me, I feel like early on, I was kind of realizing that, like, the old school model of broadcasting just kind of sucked a little bit. Like, at the time I was working for a local TV station. So if I did a big interview with someone like Tom Cruise or Morgan Freeman or Chris Hemsworth or whoever it happened to be, the only people that would see that interview were the people that were tuned in to Channel 19 on that Thursday at 4:17 p.m. And I'm like, man, that kind of sucks, because, like, if there's somebody else who's a fan of that person's work or is interested in this movie or album or whatever it happens to be, they're never going to see this. So I just started taking those interviews and just taking the raw, uncut version, just throwing them up on my YouTube channel and just hoping that other fans might be able to find them. So I feel like early on, I was just going, there's more to this than just the people that are tuned in on TV right now. And I just kind of started just taking those interviews and throwing them up there. But it's changed and shifted a lot since then. I always say the best thing about podcasting is anybody can do it. And the worst thing about podcasting is also anybody can do it. And I mean that in the best and worst ways possible. Like, the barrier of entry is so incredibly low. Like, hit record, upload it, you've got a podcast or you've got a YouTube channel now. But at the same time, if everybody can do it, what are you doing to make yourself stand out from everybody else? And that's a really big part of it that I think a lot of people don't think about or don't think about enough in trying to figure out how they can make themselves stand out.
Nah, that KP, clip that up right there. I was watching your interview today with O'Shea Jackson Jr. and it was, first off, it was amazing because it's just, it was basically you guys just talking about wrestling, just roaming, just fandom for 45 minutes to an hour. So that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, where did your fandom? Because you said you're a fan of it all: TNA, AEW, WWE, New Japan. So where did your fandom come from?
So I think like the genesis of it was like late 80s, early 90s. I just remember going to my grandparents' house, and it's not like my grandpa was a huge wrestling fan, but he loved having sports on the TV. So it was oftentimes baseball, basketball, football, a lot of hockey, because I grew up in Canada, grew up just outside of Toronto. And if that wasn't on, he'd have wrestling on. So I remember like Ultimate Warrior, Repo Man, Macho Man, like Coco B, where I remember all these like larger than life characters at that time. But it was the late 90s. It was the Attitude Era that really like sucked me into it. And I remember distinctly when it happened too. I had my best friend at the time. He lived like one town over. And if you guys remember in the 90s, when you had a friend, you did this crazy thing called talking on the phone. It's like you talked on the phone like after school, like a lot. And I remember our calls would always abruptly come to an end at 9 p.m. because Monday Night Raw was coming on. And there was one night when we weren't quite done talking about whatever we were talking about. And I said, all right, I'll just hold on till the next commercial break and we can finish out whatever we were talking about then. And I turned it on at the same time and I could hear it in the background on my phone. And I just got sucked into it. And it was Austin McMahon was the big storyline at that time. And I remember seeing The Rock for the first time and just like the charisma that like oozed out of him, whether he was in the ring or outside of the ring. And I went from watching 0 minutes of wrestling to watching everything. Like I watched Raw and Nitro. I would watch one and tape the other and then watch the other one the next day, whichever one I didn't watch live.
Wow.
I watched everything. I was watching ECW. Like this is a time when like Velocity and Jacked and Metal and Sunday Night Heat. I watched everything.
Yeah.
And I remember watching one of my very first pay-per-views, like in a movie theater when that was still a thing. So like, that's where it goes back to. And I'm one of those people that when I get passionate about something, I dive all the way in. Mm-hmm. Like I don't check the depth of the water. I don't check the temperature of the water. I just dive in. We'll figure it out. And that's kind of what happened with wrestling. Like I went all the way into it. And so much so that I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I was part of a backyard wrestling federation that we had. And then fast forward a few years, I trained to be a pro wrestler when I was 20. So like I was all the way in on wrestling. So like it went from no fandom to boom, like super fan like that.
So you've taken a bump before. So you know what that's like.
I've taken a lot of bumps. Yeah, I went to wrestling school for a few months. I went to the Squared Circle in Toronto, and long story short, I did it in the summer, like before college was starting back up again. And I had a fork in the road, and I was like, do I continue to pursue wrestling school, or do I continue and finish my degree with school and get my communication studies degree? And I just kind of figured like, I think the degree is important and wrestling will kind of always be there. And I've been fortunate. Wrestling has always been there. I can dip my toe in as a ring announcer, as a backstage interviewer, or whatever. So yeah, I've taken a bump, run the ropes. Of course, everybody's seen the video of me taking all the chops at flatbacks in Florida. So yeah, I've been in there, and you know, it doesn't tickle to take a bump, but every time I'm around a ring, like if I have the great fortune of being at a wrestling show early, I like to get in, just like take another bump, just to like kind of like feel it in your bones.
Wow.
So we're not ruling out a match in your future, is what
I think we should rule out a match in my future. Nobody wants to see that.
Listen,
I thought
it could have
a WrestleMania match out of you or something.
Well, look, if it's a WrestleMania match and it's against the tribal chief, all right, I'll do that.
But speaking of WrestleMania, right now, the biggest story was going on in wrestling right now. Cody Rhodes, The Rock, the tribal chief Roman Reigns, and just all the chaos that's coming along with this story and everything. You had the opportunity to interview them both. So how do you feel about this story that's playing out on television right now?
What I'm really curious about, and I'd love to hear what your take is. I'm so curious how much of this was planned and how much of them was like, this was like them reading the room and like hearing the audience. Because The Rock as a heel right now is incredible. And I don't think that we ever thought The Rock was going to turn heel. I don't think we ever thought The Rock could turn heel again. But I wonder how much of this was planned, because Cody wins the Rumble. Seems like it's a clear path now. Cody, Roman, number 2, like that just felt like it made a lot of sense. And then The Rock coming in, kind of stealing the thunder away from Cody. If it was written that way, feels like a great way to go. Let's make sure Cody is the absolute biggest baby face in the WWE by me coming in and trying to steal his thunder away. But I don't know. It's all very interesting here. And the thing I love about this era of pro wrestling, it's so much like this wait and see. Like, I feel like we've got, like, we keep getting like little, like, just servings of it, just a little bit, like a little taste. Like, here's a little bit. And then next week, we'll give you a little bit more. Like, I love that we watch Raw and then we learn a little bit more on SmackDown and then we learn a little bit more the next Raw. And it's hard, right? It's so hard to be patient as a wrestling fan. But if you think about the last year or so of Triple H being in charge and booking, there really haven't been many, if any, missteps. So I'm putting my faith in they've got a plan here. And I know as we sit here in February, we don't know what that plan is really, but I have faith that when WrestleMania rolls around, we're all going to be sitting here going, this is fantastic. This is brilliant, because we really haven't been let down yet.
So far.
I'm definitely a part of the we just got to wait it out and see what happens, because I'm not gonna lie, like the last like 2 or 3 weeks, I've been like losing my mind, because I'm like, bro, this doesn't make sense. And I'm over here screaming at people. I'm like, yo, it doesn't make sense. Because why would he give up his opportunity to The Rock to now come back and say, and I'm over here, I'm looking stupid in front of like all our listeners, everybody, and people like, bro, just enjoy it, bro. Just relax, enjoy it, bro. So now, like, even our producer KP was like, bro, look, they got 8 weeks to WrestleMania. Let them do what they have to do. So now I'm like, all right, fine. Like, I really just had to bite the bullet and be like, all right, fine. Let's see what happens, instead of just jumping out the window and being upset. So I was like, all right, you know what? Like you said, they're giving you piece by piece every single, every Raw, every SmackDown, every Raw, every SmackDown. And that's just, I just got to literally just be a fan and watch what happens. And
I want to say that there was a time when we were complaining about matches and main events, like not that long ago, year, 2, 3, years ago. Now we're in a time where there are so many great possibilities for main events that we're like, I feel like we're almost spoiled. Like, there's so many great options now, and it's tough, right? It's tough to be patient. And the other part about this that's really funny is when you give a take on like one day, like if we gave a take today, that take might completely blow up in our faces by the time SmackDown airs on Friday. And I think that that's actually a really exciting time. Like, we were all so confused about what was going on with The Rock and why would he do this. Then he kind of teases a bit of a heel turn on the Pat McAfee show, which is fascinating in itself. That if we want to go back to that era of the Monday Night Wars and the Attitude Era, stuff only existed on Monday, right? Like, if it didn't happen on TV, it didn't happen. Now we're living in a time when storylines can happen on the Pat McAfee show. Storylines can happen at a press conference. Like, I think it's really exciting that like this wrestling bubble is just getting so much bigger and bigger. And it's such a great time to be a wrestling fan. It truly is.
Mm-hmm. And I even want to add on to, like you saying, like the wrestling bubble's getting bigger and bigger, because I feel like we saw that like the past couple of weeks with like Super Bowl, and even last weekend with the All-Star game, seeing the the WWE Championship get passed around, people like Lil Wayne holding it, Snoop Dogg. I seen Jesse Jackson holding the WWE Championship. So I'm like, bro, what's happening? So now I feel like it's getting that popularity back. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, all right, this is the cool thing again. So it's cool to really see that.
Yeah, no question. And I think it's just continuing to get bigger and bigger with every week and month that goes by.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the company buying the WWE, it being like a talent agency, you can use some of those connects to try to pull and get the right people to hold that title, that Snoop Dogg title, like Eve said, and things like that. So We're seeing
like
it
even last
bubble.
night, Michael Chandler cutting a promo on Conor McGregor live on Raw. Like that's something we never would have seen before.
Yeah, that was completely unexpected for me. I'm watching this like this is really happening right now.
Right?
I want to ask you about your interviewing, right? So you've interviewed a lot of wrestlers, a lot of actors. Who promotes their product the best? Who would you say promotes their product the best between wrestlers and actors?
I think that of the people that I've interviewed, I think The Rock's really good at making you interested in whatever it is. So if it's a movie that he's talking about, or if it's Zoa that he's promoting, or if it's the latest Project Rock, drop, The Rock's really good at getting you in and making you feel like you're invested in this. So I would say it's The Rock. And also he's a fantastic interview because I think he's pretty aware, like he's pretty self-aware of the fact that, he's one of the biggest stars in the world. He brings you into the moment. So not only is he funny and charismatic and, quick-witted, but he's really good at like sharing the moment with you and like bringing you into the moment. Like he'll just, nice hat. I love that hat that you're wearing. You're like, whoa, The Rock likes my hat. Like, this is crazy. So like, I think it's The Rock. I'm sure there's other people out there that I haven't interviewed that are really good at this. Like I haven't interviewed Logan Paul, but Logan Paul's pretty fantastic at like making Prime the focus of everything that he does, like from bringing out a Prime mascot, in WWE, like that ended up being KSI. Like, I think that that's a really good way to like just intertwine those different things. So, but I'd say of the people that I've talked to, it's got to be The Rock.
Yeah, especially because he'll like bring his whole life story into whatever he's doing. So like with the Zoa, he'll be like, yeah, so my family for generations we needed energy and I needed to bottle that up. So I made Zoa. And then you're like, oh yeah, no, I'm invested in Zoa now. This is me.
Right. There's a great book that I love called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And the whole idea behind it's exactly what you're talking about. People don't buy what you're trying to sell. They buy why you're selling it. And he like is so great at being able to weave a storyline into the whole idea here. Like, why is his movie production company called $7 Production? Well, we all know the story behind that now, right? And I think that he's a fantastic storyteller. And I'm not even talking about wrestling because he's obviously a great storyteller in the ring too.
Right.
What a guy, man.
Yeah. So I did want to know, like, how did your career move into interviewing wrestlers as well? So you mentioned that you went to school for communications and things like that. So you do the internship, you start interviewing celebrities and things of that nature. How did you shift into interviewing wrestlers now about wrestling?
So I was working at MTV2 Canada at the time in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And I was interviewing a lot of musicians, actors, comedians, that type of stuff. Wrestling happened to be coming to town. And I was a huge wrestling fan. And I just asked my boss, like, hey, could I reach out to the WWE and like, could we interview a wrestler on the show? And she's like, yeah, sure. We've done that before. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get paid to talk to a wrestler. This is crazy. So that's where it began. That was Bobby Lashley, 2007. There's a clip of it on my YouTube channel. It's kind of embarrassing, and cringy, but please go check it out if you want. That's where it began. And it was kind of like every time Raw or SmackDown or TNA was coming to town, I would just do an interview. We would air a quick little clip on TV, and then I would take the Raw interview, like I was saying earlier, and I would just put that Raw interview online for anybody else who's a fan that might want to check it out. That's really where it began. So I was interviewing 2, 3, maybe 4 wrestlers a year. I actually remember one time my boss going, I've done a lot of wrestlers recently. Let's cool it on the wrestlers for a little while. But then I started going out of my way when I was living in Cleveland. I was working for the CBS TV station there. I started going out of my way. Like there were great independent wrestling shows in town, like Prime Wrestling Ohio and AIW. I would start to go to their shows, talk to the promoter and say, hey, you've got Christopher Daniels here, or hey, you've got Rhino here. Would it be okay if we did a quick interview with them and I'll put it on my YouTube channel? Yeah, sure. No problem. That's where it really started to grow. So on top of still doing the celebrity interviews and still doing a lot of local interviews too, I was interviewing these wrestlers and kind of like finding my way to like if they're at an independent wrestling show, they're at a convention, finding my way to them and asking if they'll do an interview. And then it's just kind of grown from there. Like at that time, I was really fortunate. We're talking like 10 plus years ago. I was really fortunate that I had the access through the TV station that I worked for to be able to do these interviews and to be able to like ask the questions that I genuinely wanted to know the answer to as a fan. And it just started to grow from there. And now we're doing like at least 2 a week. So like, it's a lot now. Like it's like 100-ish episodes a year on the podcast. And man, I love it. And there's still a whole list of people I haven't interviewed. So, I mean, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. Like, who's on the list that you haven't? Because obviously it's been 10 plus years of wrestlers you've interviewed. So who haven't you gotten a chance to speak to yet?
Well, I really need to do another one with Bobby Lashley. Like, I feel like that one 17 years ago doesn't really count. I ran into him at Royal Rumble and I was like, we need to make this happen. Let's set this up. So I'm fingers crossed it happens sometime this year. But I haven't interviewed Randy Orton, AJ Styles. I've never interviewed Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Triple H. Never done an interview with him. So like, there's still a bunch. Shawn Michaels. There's still a bunch here. And I feel like they could happen. It's just a matter of time. So those are some of the bigger ones that I definitely want to do.
I think we can make that happen. We can we'll put your people on with our people and try to make those interviews.
Okay.
happen.
Sign me up. Sign me up.
With WWE like being more global, this weekend Elimination Chamber is in Australia.
At 2 a.m. West Coast time, by the way.
Oh man, isn't that something? It's 5 a.m. over here, but it's
I know it's still it's early.
How close do you think we're getting to possibly getting a WrestleMania in a different country?
I feel like it's been heavily teased, right? Like you don't bring John Cena out at Money in the Bank in London just to bring John Cena out at Money in the Bank in London to talk about WrestleMania. Like if I had to guess, I don't think it's this next year. I don't think it's WrestleMania 41, but I would be shocked if it's not WrestleMania 42 or WrestleMania 43. I just think one of the biggest things that they're going to have to figure out is start time, right? Like when it's in the US, they just kind of work around East Coast start time, and whether it's in California or it's on the East Coast, just figure it out. I just think they'd have to figure out what start time makes the most sense for everybody to watch. But I think it's just a matter of time now. It's going to be at the O2 Arena, I would think. But I will also say that with the success that they just had with the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, it will be in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium within the next 2 years for sure. WWE loves going into new arenas or new stadiums and breaking records. So if WrestleMania 41 isn't in Vegas, maybe it's London, Vegas, and then I've been hearing rumblings about Minneapolis. So I would say those are probably the next 3 WrestleManias. This is a total guess. I don't know what order they're in, but that would be my guess for what the next 3 Manias are.
Not bad either.
If I was a gambling man, I would place a bet on everything that you just said. You said London, Las Vegas, and then Minneapolis. Play those straight and see what happens, man.
Okay, let's do it. And then selfishly, since I'm from the Toronto area, I hope it comes back to Toronto because it hasn't been in Toronto in 20 plus years, not since Rock Hogan WrestleMania 18. So if we're keeping with the international theme, let's put WrestleMania back in the Rogers Center.
Yeah. I want to. Toronto is one of those places that I've been longing to come to. So if WrestleMania does come in Toronto,
Money in the Bank. It's at Money in the Bank in Toronto this year. So there you go.
Money in the Bank, you'll see me.
I think it's Carabana weekend too. So
it is.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's around the same time. So I just might have to dabble, skip over the border real quick.
Yeah, we might have to dibble and dabble.
Yeah. For research purposes.
Of course. Yeah.
100%. So wrestlers, we know wrestlers have signature moves. So I want to know as an interviewer, as a personality, when you interview people, do you have a signature question that you like to ask everybody?
I think it's the question about gratitude that I ask at the end of every episode. And So if you're not familiar with my interviews and you've never seen them before, I ask every guest at the end, what are 3 things you're grateful for right now? And that stems from the fact that I ask myself that question every morning, and I ask myself and my wife that question before we go to bed every night. And the idea behind that is there is good and bad in every day, right? But if you can just take a second to just say out loud, like 3 things you're grateful for, and they can be simple things like I'm grateful for my health, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for a roof over my head, whatever it happens to be. It just starts to reframe your whole idea of like, yeah, even though all this terrible stuff did happen today, at least I have these things that I can be grateful for. And when you start to focus on the things that you have rather than focusing on the things that you don't have, your life starts to shift a lot. So that's a question I've been asking my guests now for a few years. And what I love about that is that anybody that's watching an interview of mine or that's listening to the episode on the podcast, they can go, oh, wow, that person who's so successful, that person who's a former world champion, or that person who's an Oscar winner, they're grateful for those things. I have those things. Maybe I should start to be grateful for those things. So I'd say that's what it is for me. By the way, is there a signature question that you guys have? Do you ask a guest the same question on every episode?
My fault. I was muted. It's funny you say that. We have a signature segment, actually. It's called Talk to Me Nice, where we ask our guests questions, you know what I'm saying, along with the interview. But these are different kinds of questions.
Gotcha.
So I actually want to segue into that right now.
Oh, look, we just teed you right up for it.
Off the glass.
This is why he gets paid the big bucks.
Boom.
Somebody talk to me nice.
Everything I do, I don't do. I do the other thing. Everything I go across the street that way, I'm going up.
TTMN.
These are said big bucks right here. But I wanted to ask you, since it's WrestleMania 40 this year, we've made it through the 30s. If you could rank your top 5 WrestleManias from the 30s, what would they be?
Only like 30 to 39?
Yeah.
Or all of them?
30 to 39.
Oh my God.
Your top 5. Just top 5. Which your 5 favorites?
So which 5 are not going to make the cut?
Yeah.
If you could make it easier, we could get rid of the pandemic mania. What was that?
Well, that one's easy, right? And I think WrestleMania 36 and 37, I think they're out, right?
Yeah.
I think that's
Fair
pretty
enough.
easy. I don't know if I can rank them, but I've been to most of the WrestleManias. I think I might have been to all of these WrestleManias, including 37 with the cardboard cutouts sitting around me, which was wild.
Oh.
The rain delay and the cardboard cutouts. See, here, some that
happened.
really stand out for me. 30 obviously stands out. The streak getting broken, and like you felt like the air just got sucked out of the building. And then fast forward to whatever it was, half an hour later, and you've got confetti falling from the sky. Everybody's doing Yes-Mania. So that's definitely up there. 38 was pretty great. And like Cody, returning to WWE, that was cool. And like the long, very long pause of like Seth Rollins is in the ring. And then there's this long pause of who's his opponent going to be? Wrestling has more than one. You're like, oh, he is here. So that was a pretty cool moment. I mean, there's so many of these are great. Like the Hardys coming back. That was the 33, right? 33
In Tampa?
Yeah,
Did they run it back in Tampa?
Orlando.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Orlando.
That's a moment right
I don't
there.
know. I'm just thinking. I'm just naming off moments here. I will say this. I think that a lot of people sleep on how good it was last year. Like WrestleMania 39 was fantastic.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people are very upset about WrestleMania 39 because of the last 3 seconds of WrestleMania 39. Like, everybody thought that Cody was going to win, finish the story. He didn't. The story continues on to where we sit here right now. But WrestleMania 39, like start to finish,
Awesome.
was pretty fantastic. So
Mhm.
I've got to throw that in there.
Yes.
But man, there's so many of them. Like we got 31 with Seth Rollins cashing in the heist of the century. 32, pretty amazing, breaking the attendance record at Jerry's World. I'm just listing them all off now. This isn't even fair.
but I'm sure it probably is different for you. Like it is different because you've experienced them, right? So being there in person, it's like, ah, man, like I'm sure they all have a special place. You know what I'm saying in your heart.
I'll tell you guys a story. I don't think I've ever said this publicly. I missed the heist of the century.
Wow.
So I had a tradition for years where I was going on a WrestleMania trip with 3 of my best friends that I knew from when I lived in Cleveland. And we continued the tradition even when we moved on from living in Cleveland. I was living in Miami at the time. We had a red-eye flight that night leaving out of San Francisco, and Santa Clara is not that close to the airport. So we were like, man, we're cutting it so fine here with like the event ending, battling like all the parking lot traffic to then get out, then battling all the traffic to try to get to the airport to try to make our flight. As soon as we hear the 1, 2, 3, or no, as soon as it wasn't even the 1, 2, 3, as soon as like this match is like halfway, 3/4 of the way done, we gotta leave. Like we gotta go. And I remember we were like leaving the arena and we heard Seth Rollins' music hit, and I'm like, what? We can't go back in. There's no re-entry, but it's happening right now. And I remember getting into our car and like the rental car and the fireworks were going off around the stadium. And I'm like, of all the times we could have left, like this is not the time to leave. But we all made our red-eye flights on time, but still. So
at what cost?
I heard that it was happening. I could hear it and I could see the fireworks, but I was not in the building as it was happening.
Wow.
What was the first Mania you went to?
WrestleMania 18.
Ooh.
So Rock Hogan. It was in Toronto, and I'm the same age as WrestleMania, so I was 18 going there. And I remember going there fully intending to cheer for The Rock. And then Hogan came out, and I was like, man, this is just so cool. Like, and even though he came out to like the NWO music, I'm like, I'm a Hulkamaniac. I am. And like, felt like a lot of the crowd did that. It was probably like 80-20, like 80% Hulkamaniacs there. And I remember there was this little kid sitting next to me. Well, none of us sat during that match, standing next to me. And we were like cheering for Hogan. And this kid next to me was like, Rocky. And I remember when The Rock won, who I think we all kind of knew The Rock was going to win that match. I remember him like looking at me and being like, ha, I told you he was going to win. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. I thought it was cool to cheer for Hogan. But that was my first one. It was 18. I've been to 18, 27, then 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 37, 38, 39.
This guy's on a run.
Yeah, nah.
On a run. It got broken up by the pandemic, though.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that doesn't count, though, because you were right
I
back.
didn't go to 28 either.
I assume you're going to be in Philly this year.
I will be there both days. Yeah. Are you guys going to be there?
I mean, we're not far. I'm actually, this is going to sound crazy. Please don't judge me for this, but I'm choosing to go to Mets opening day because I'm an avid Mets fan. So I'm like, all right. I was like, should I go to WrestleMania or Mets opening day? And I was like, you know what? I live 30 minutes away from Citi Field. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to Citi Field, leave work early, go to Citi Field, opening day. We're gonna drink some beers. We're gonna have a good time. So I'm choosing Mets opening day over.
Wow.
And
I mean this with great love. It must be tough to be a Mets fan.
let me double down. I'm actually a Jets fan too. So
Mets, Jets. Oh man,
Payne knows me well, man.
You could be Giants, Yankees. Why not?
You should have.
Well, I've gone to Yankee Stadium and it feels like Rikers Island. So I decided,
are you Mets? It's Mets, Jets, Nets, right? Isn't that how it goes usually? Are you a Knicks fan?
You can say that. No, I'm not a Knicks fan. I'm not a fan of any New York basketball. I'm a fan of whatever New York basketball team makes me money. So right now, it's neither of them. So I've been. I'm strictly Mets and Jets, die hard.
So my dad and I go to a different MLB stadium every single year. We've been to 23 of them, and Citi Field is still on our list of places to go. So that actually might be this year. I may see you at a Mets game this year.
Yeah, now you'll 100% see me at Citi Field this year.
Love it.
It's definitely better than Yankee Stadium, and I'm a Yankee fan, but
I've been to both Yankee stadiums. I've been to new and old. I mean, it's like a Coliseum, right? Like Yankee Stadium, whatever, if you like the Yankees or not, I don't think it matters. Like objectively, Yankee Stadium is pretty great. So if you're saying Citi Field's better than that,
Yeah.
the bar is now set very high.
It's only because I don't like how Yankee Stadium is just concrete and stainless steel everywhere. Like there's nothing to do there. It's just you as the fan are the aura. Everything else is just there for you to just stand.
Yeah, I get that. Like I think the best stadiums in the majors are I love Wrigley. Wrigley's amazing. I love Fenway. And then like some of the modern parks, like I love Petco in San Diego. I love Baltimore's. Like I love when it feels like they've integrated the stadium like into the neighborhood rather than, kind of what they have with New Yankee Stadium, where it's just kind of like, we'll tear down the old one and plop, here's the new one.
But then use the old designs for the new stadium. Like I don't want a stadium from the 1910s in the 2000s. What are we doing here?
At least the chairs aren't from the 1910s. At least they modernize that.
Listen, if you're in the 200s or higher, it might be.
Let me tell you something before we close. I've gone to Yankee Stadium about 3 or 4 times. Every single time I've gone there, it's been raining and the skies are gray. And I'm like, you walk in the Yankee Stadium, you're like, yo, this is crazy. And then I'll go to Citi Field, the sun is shining, planes are flying over, birds are chirping. I'm like, yo, this is awesome.
So the price you pay with the Bronx. So
it's vibe, man. I don't know. Hey, man. But I think that's, fellas, do we have any more questions we want to bombard Chris with?
I just might have one more. Chris, another thing that we like to end every show with is we do have a question that we ask everyone. We've been doing this for years, since at least like 2005. So we want to ask you, what are 3 things that you're grateful for? totally original question.
Man, that is such a great question. Where did you get that from? Wow. Grateful for my family. Like we've got a little girl. I'm a new dad. Our little girl Logan. I just came from swimming lessons with her, and like she has this huge smile when we do it. So just grateful for my family, and yeah, like they mean so much to me. And then number 2, kind of linked to that, grateful for our health. Grateful that the people that I love and care about are healthy, because it's easy to have a lot of problems and a lot of focus when you're healthy, but when you're not, when you're unhealthy and when you're sick, is really just one focus, and that's getting better. And I'm really grateful that we have our health. And number 3, I'm grateful for opportunity. Like I'm so grateful that, look, we're on the other side of the country from each other and we're sitting here chatting like we're sitting next to each other. I love that. I love that we're able to do this. I love that this is even a thing. This didn't exist 10 plus years ago, 15 plus years ago. And now it is a thing. And we all have the ability to have a voice. And I love that. And I'm super grateful for it. So there you go. 1, 2, 3.
Definitely for like the boys, you guys, all my friends, we're going to Mania this year, me and a couple of my other friends. And we're doing that after going to opening day at the Yankee game. Unlike Eve, we're going to make it work. We're diehards like that. We're doing both. And we're going to see our team win, unlike Eve, once again. The platforms, being able to have a voice, even though everybody shouldn't have one, a podcast and things like that, we should, and we have one. So
yeah,
also grateful for that. And let's see what else. What's a third? I'm gonna go with family as well. Family always, they're the backbone to everybody. So definitely.
Man, that's a fact. Look, we all know, my family knows I'm very grateful and appreciative of them. You feel me? I love them all. Love my friends. I'll end it real simple. I'm very grateful for Manny. I'm very grateful for Cody. And I'm very grateful for our special guest today, Chris Van Vliet, man. Round of applause.
Thank you
for the show.
Right back at you. Thank you guys so much. And speaking of the bad weather, it just occurred to me recently that Philly's an open air stadium.
Oh, yeah.
2 nights of WrestleMania in early April.
Yeah.
It could be incredible or it could be really cold.
Yes.
I think it's going to be the latter. So
yeah, pack your Canada Goose, Chris.
Like WrestleMania 29 in New York, at MetLife. Like it was like raining and like 40 degrees. And it was like, can we go back to like domes or like, somewhere warm? Like, can we go to Miami again? Like, so fingers crossed too, that it's warm for both nights.
I hope so. Listen, I'm gonna be right there with you. So I'm gonna bring my North Face. You never know. Or I might bring a light jacket.
I'm bringing a parka with the fur around the hood.
There you go.
Yep.
Knowing Manny, he might just be there in a cardigan only. So
yeah, that's true. A cardigan and 2 tequilas, I'll be all right.
So you need sometimes, man. Chris, before we let you go, man, please let the people know where they can find you if they don't already know.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you guys so much for just giving me the opportunity to come on here and talk a little wrestling with you. I love it. If you're listening to this, you can go find my podcast, Insight with Chris Van Vliet. Check out some of the recent interviews that we've had on there. If you're watching this, go find my YouTube channel. It's just my name. There it is, at Chris Van Vliet. And then same on social media. It's just my name. But again, congrats, guys. I said it at the top, and I'll say it again now. Congrats on everything, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, man. Congratulations to you also, man. A brand new father, man.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. It's the best.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
That's awesome, man. Well, good. There you guys have it. I'm Eve. That's Cody. That's Manny. And that's Chris, man. Well, there we go. That's Chris Van Vliet, man. We are out of here. Thank you again, man.